Disclosure Day is Steven Spielberg's newest film that challenges the line of religion and science fiction, with a fast-paced conspiracy narrative that brings up many questions as will bring a clear goal in mind throughout the film, with a few simple messages such as just be kind, listen, and believe in wonder. The film's tagline, if you found out we weren't alone, if someone showed you, proved it to you, would that frighten you? This film directly follows that message, with our cast of characters developing very directly with conspiracy, with the conspiracy plot of the government and extraterrestrials. Um, Steven Spielberg really works his magic with this film and absolutely knocks it out of the park. This is a film about wonder, believing something more is out there. This is a film for everyone as well. There are some amazing speeches and amazing character work done in this film. Primarily with a character called Hugo by Colin Froman, Josh O'Connor's character Kellner, and Emily Blunt's Margaret Fairchild. So, and I think the number one thing I took away from this movie is I could watch this film, be satisfied without this film trying to interrupt or override religion, and making it so the world can see things as both ways, as a religious perspective and a scientific perspective of something I greatly appreciated. So getting into a review, we have a couple main characters. So Emily Blunt's Margaret Fairchild, and I refer to her as the One. Um, we also have her boyfriend Wyatt Russell, or her boyfriend played by Wyatt Russell. Then we have another cast of characters, Josh O'Connor, which you will recognize from Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out movie. And his name is Dr. Kellner, or the translator as I call him. And he's paired with Eve Hewson's Jane. Kellner opens the film trying to rescue Jane, and I won't go into spoilers whatsoever here, just so you guys can enjoy this a little bit more. But so we have our four groups, really. We have Emily Blunt and Wyatt Russell, or we have Margaret Fairchild and her boyfriend. We have Kellner and Jane. We have Noah Schlan, is how I think you pronounce his last name, as the main government conspiracist. Right, he's the director of a secret government agency that basically ends up overriding the presidents within the country to keep extraterrestrials a secret, as always. And then we also have Hugo, which is played by Coleman Fromingo. I know that's not how you pronounce the last name. I'm sorry. From the Midwest. What do you expect? But Hugo basically kind of serves as the main antagonist to Noah, and he's trying to support our protagonist throughout the film. Basically being a counteractive agency to the direct government agency that's working against our main characters. But this film, I went into this hoping for the Steven Spielberg name. Wanted to see it. Wanted to see a Spielberg film. I wanted to feel like when I saw E.T. as a kid, when I saw Jaws, when we all saw Ready Player One, and like, these are amazing, beautiful worlds he can build. This movie delivers, absolutely. Absolutely does this film deliver on every single aspect. You feel this amazing world that is our own. Why this film doesn't necessarily tackle challenges, but this tackle challenges of our world. This film is so very clearly in our world. These are characters you could pick off a street. These are characters that have realistic challenges and struggles and relationship issues. And this whole movie drives questions the entire time, but it's so fast paced. This movie is 2.5 hours long, and when it ended, I thought we were only about an hour through. This movie is a quick pace, phenomenal, will keep you on your toes the entire time. While overall being a conspiracy mystery film, there's plenty of action scenes as well, heartbreaking character moments, and I won't spoil it until the spoiler section of this video. But there's this scene towards the end, and it's about 20 minutes long, I think. And it is. When I was talking to my friend about this, I could only say this was a horrifying moment, this was like a horrifying, fearful moment that you can only sit there and be like, oh, and say, oh my God, how do you do this? How do you do this film? How did you make this? And just the emotion of you're sitting there and you're scared and you're sad and you're feeling so much emotion all in this and just watching the screen. And like I said, I won't spoil that, but that is my favorite part of the film, that 20 minutes right there. The film also does have a very heavy tone that is broke up mainly by Emily Blunt's comedy section and some pretty heavier action scenes that also do carry a lot of tension with them on how the movie's going to go forward. But so we're at our 6 minute mark right here. But my review for this film is 9 out of 10. This is the greatest film I have seen this year in 2025. And I've seen a film every single week for the last 2 years straight. Every single Friday I go to watch a film so I can work and upload these videos on a Saturday. And I've only recently started doing that, but I've seen a film every Friday for the last 2 years. This is probably the greatest film I have seen, and I would put this film on quality of films. I think it's going to be very high, but as of my list, off the top of my head, what I think, this film is second to Interstellar only. This is one of the greatest films I have. It has so much heart to it, has so many groundbreaking performances. Our actors and our actresses are just selling their hearts out there. Emily Blunt, phenomenal. Wyatt Russell, phenomenal. Josh O'Connor, Eve Hewson, Colin Firth, Coleman Flamingo. I'm so sorry, brother. You're awesome. You're amazing in this film. You're amazing and amazing in Running Man. And I hate saying your name wrong, but I'm terrible about it. But go watch this film. This film is amazing. Spielberg's magic does not end. Here it is again. And I hope to see this film coming in. So we're at about the 7 minute mark. I'm going to give you guys about the next 30 seconds to click off. Just to avoid spoilers. So at the 8 minute mark, I'm going straight into spoilers. So just some more information while I'm waiting that timer out. I've started writing scripts for these. I'm not very good at it yet, as you can tell. But this is the biggest script I've wrote, and I have 6 pages of notes for this. I've never gone more than 2. The Among Us TV show, I had just slightly over 2 pages. I have 7 or 6. I have 6 pages here. Okay, we are now in the spoilers section. If you do not want to be spoiled, get out. Please go watch this movie before you watch this. I promise you, you will enjoy this more. We first start the film with meeting Kellner, who's played by Josh O'Connor, which you'll know as the priest from Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out movie film, however it's said. And he's at a professional wrestling match, WWE match. He meets 2 agents there, one of which pulls a gun on him immediately. And he ends up turning over his backpack for his friend Jane, who we soon come to meet. Kellner is then escorted outside after his backpack has been removed, goes outside and meets a group led by the character Noah Schland, who is played by Colin Firth, who you'll know from the Kingsman movies and a whole lot more. I'm blanking on his character in the Kingsman names, but he's the main Kingsman who trained Eggsy. And has the amazing Freebird fight scene. But anyhow, so we come outside and meet these guys. And they're this government agency. I can't remember their name and I can't find it, but it's said several times in the film. Come out there, they're searching this backpack. Inside of it's a lot of data chips, a lot of and just a lot of data basically. There's some other stuff in there. But they end up finding this one case that they actually discovered to be empty. But first, Colin Firth is trying to interrogate Kellner, and he reveals they have Jane, and they give Jane over, and they're trying to figure out some more information. Kellner ends up pulling this object out of his back pocket, which I will from now on refer to as a wand. I don't know directly what they were called. I'm going to call it a wand. and everyone is absolutely terrified of this. Everyone pulls a gun on Kilner, all several dozen agents there, and um, Noah is trying to console him, saying, "Hey, loosen your grip. If you tighten your grip, you're gonna kill someone. You're gonna kill us all." Basically, when he's holding this wand, and so Kellner uses that as leverage, gets him and Jane in the car, gets his backpack back with all the data, and gets in the car and runs away. So they end up meeting. They end up going to a church, ran by Jane's nun friend, and I can't remember her name, and I couldn't find her address. But they end up staying there for the night. For the next morning, to be picked up by a man named Hugo. Kellner contacts why they're during the. It's not really a chase scene, but they're running away. He contacts Hugo via burner phones. Hugo, played by Coleman Virgo, Flamingo, serves as the antagonist to Noshland's government agency. They're basically working with our protagonist and working as kind of the resistance that our characters are trying to get to. However, they set up Kellner and Jane with an escort to a safe house. He comes, meets them at the church the next morning, and they all escape to this farmhouse that we can actually see in the trailer. If I can find it real quick. That's an alien. Anyhow, they escape to this farmhouse where he was right there. Come on. Where we catch up with Kellner, who has to go take a walk over the hill to make a call. But before that, he shows the data and he gives up the plot of the film to Jane, and which we all knew this was an aliens film going into it, which was awesome. But Hugo shows her the footage, and we see Richard Nixon with a famous movie star. I don't remember what the guy's name was. They go into this air base and they show off alien bodies, which is actually shown here in this trailer. It's this scene right here. These are several alien bodies that President Nixon right here shows to whoever this guy is trying to impress him. This was actually the moment that I'm going to call him Noah, played by Colin Firth. His agency determined that presidents could no longer run this organization because after 8 years they were only civilians. So this organization basically runs outside of government jurisdiction. And this agency runs outside of government jurisdiction. But on that, there's Roswell. On that note, we see. God, it's beautiful imagery. I gotta stop watching that. Jane gets super freaked out by all the information, and before Hugo leaves, she kind of gets this eye on the backpack, and he doesn't trust her, and he ends up taking the backpack with him. He had also showed her this video of a alien getting interrogated, of which is just terrible, and we can't see it happening. We see a video of the alien, but we cannot see the interrogation happening, but we can just hear this thing screaming, and just, it's this terrible moment. And the actors literally start crying, and he has this breakdown and has to shut his laptop, so he can't keep watching that anymore. But he ends up taking the backpack, going over the hill to contact Ego once again. And basically, we see this scene in the trailer. This is him on the hill, but this huge crop circle starts forming around him as he's doing it, as he's making this call. And it's weird. Something's going on. I want to stop right here for this scene too. But Jane actually, so Noah goes trying to find Kellner, and he can't. They do this thing called diving, where they've got one of the alien wands, and we see this case open, and it's got a slot for 3 alien wands. Noah has one. Kellner has one. And who has the third one? Is it Hugo? Yeah, Noah has one, Hugo has one, and Kellner has the 3 wands, right? But Noah can't dive into Kellner's mind for some reason because he's actually chosen, but finds Jane because he remembers her face, finds her, and is looking at her face, grabs the wand and has a bunch of people checking his vitals, and dives into her mind. Basically takes over his mind and interrogates her. He makes her tell him the truth about everything, and he's able to decipher their location through basically true or false statements, or yes or no statements. She's like, which direction did you leave after this? North. Did you turn left or right? Right. And so they're able to precisely track down their location. He also gets her to say, we need to kill Kellner to protect the world. So Noah's whole goal, he is played as the villain, but his position within the film isn't that as a villain, but more of a collateral damage kind of person. He's an individual that's genuinely terrified of letting the truth of there being extraterrestrials and this super advanced technology out to the general population and the public because of the fear and the outrage and the chaos that would ensue. That's his driving factors. He's terrified of that moment happening, so he's trying his best to stay away from it. But Kellner actually sees that all these agents end up surrounding this house, so he's back here on this hill, and he actually ends up kind of sneaking around. And so we later find that he's a prodigy of a character, is what he really is, and he can see patterns. So him sneaking was really weird, but it also kind of makes sense. But Hugo ends up still in this car, driving all the way through here with the backpack to rescue Jane, who we can see later in this trailer actually has a knife and is going to try to kill him in the car. But she actually kind of takes over on Hugo, or on Noah, and is able takes over on Noah and is able to break free from his like mind control. But so one of the most phenomenal scenes of this film is this farmhouse chase. So a perspective, right? We see this scene, right, where he steals the car, he comes up, and in one shot, the camera does not cut. And I think that's so important. Obviously, there's a hit and cut. But it looked like they really filmed this, and they built this farmhouse just to do this. But he drove this car through this wall, and it looked real. Got hurt in the car, and agents came up and tried to block him out, but he shut the door just in time and locked them out. And then he drove through the house here. Right there. Like, look how real that looks. And you can see it. But it hangs on for several minutes, but there's this piece of wood hanging on the dash. And it looks like that was a real stunt. They really did it. And it looks phenomenal. And it's this one take kind of shot. And it's just beautiful camera work. This whole film has amazing camera work. It's beautiful. It's amazing. However, Kellner and Jane are actually able to escape this, and they end up getting to this, escaping the group, out driving them. There's a crash that slows down the rest of the group, which was kind of funny to me, because the guy like hits a guardrail and flips on a bridge, blocking everyone. So they get about a minute or two of lead time, but they end up driving to a core and almost running off the ledge. And Kellner and Jane throw the car over, and the car goes flying into this quarry, and they end up running into the woods and tricking all the agents, saying that's how they go. So why these two characters are on the run, we kind of skipped over a little bit. The film cuts a lot better than how I'm getting to, and their pacing's a lot better than what mine is. So don't take my review as a guide, but I'm telling you it's phenomenal. But a little bit earlier we met Margaret, who's played by Emily Blunt. We can see her as the news anchor. Here's a video of her. That's actually the director. That is not the beautiful woman I'm looking for. As our news anchor right here, we actually catch up with her and her boyfriend, Jackson, I believe his name is, in their apartment. And they're having some relationship troubles, but they're largely on it. She kind of wants to move again because she's not super happy with her life, and she's trying to run away from her problems. Jackson is a musician and a DJ, chasing his thing, but you can definitely tell there's a little bit of space between them. And she's kind of really ignoring Jackson and isn't treating him the best. But actually, they're sitting there at their table kind of talking, and a cardinal flies through their window, lands on their table. And it puts Margaret in this trance until Jackson like pushes the bird out the window, closes the window, and she's just kind of in this trance, and he starts talking to her, and she starts talking to him as a different person and in Russian. And is having this very weird thing. But she ends up leaving to go to work for her newscast station, ends up getting pulled over by a cop for speeding, and ends up just being able to look at this cop and look him in the eyes and say, hey. And it's just able to see these things about him. And she starts talking to him. She's like, your wife wasn't arguing with her, and says her name, wasn't arguing with her. She's not mad at you. She's just frustrated. She just needs a nap. You just need a nap. You don't regret having your child. You're just stressed out. You're not nearly as terrible of a man as your father, And just she's truly looking inside of this person's soul and seeing all this goes. And the cop is just so stunned, she ends up taking her IDs back and driving off with him standing in the middle of the road. But she gets to work, and she's also having this freak out. She's just having this freak out, and she's like talking to all these people and like looking in their souls without realizing she's doing it. And she goes up this one lady comes up to her and she's like, "You need to call the cops and get your daughter out of there and go stay with your sister. This man's dangerous or whatnot." And all this crazy stuff. And she ends up going up here, and she starts doing this alien speak. And Emily Blunt plays this off amazingly, and it's this like terrifying, genuine moment. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, she just had the stroke, whatever." But they end up cutting off of her and saying, "Oh, they just had some audio and visual issues." But she ends up passing out, and so we next see her in a hospital with her boyfriend, and she's doing an MRI. She checks out fine, everything's okay, and then they start talking about her trauma. Her father had Parkinson's, which they kind of just make a joke out of it. Parkinson's when your hand shakes, but it is a neurodivergent condition. But her boyfriend brings up the fact she has nightmares often, and when she was 10 years old, she had this tragic event happen to her. There are two FBI agents outside waiting for them. However, she's able to read one of their minds or see through their soul, however you want to see it, and says they're not real FBI agents. We're in danger. So her and her boyfriend are actually able to sneak out. And they get outside, and they kind of have this funny moment where the boyfriend's like, White Russell plays it really well, as he's just kind of this like annoyed, tired boyfriend, like something's going on, and he's just like, he's trying to help her, but also like she's acting crazy. And this is something I really like. Of these characters are just real characters. You have Kellner and Margaret who are kind of on the outside of it, but Jane Jackson are very realistic characters who are doing very realistic things and have very realistic reactions to everything, which I really appreciate. I think this is one of the best films outside of Palm Island, which is I think one of the greatest love stories ever made, to actually do secondary characters better than the main characters. I mean, they wrote the background, or not even the background, but the secondary characters so well. Let's see where we are at. But they end up escaping the hospital. She gets a call from Hugo, actually, who's able to find her number and basically says, "Hey, you need to come to us, and I can't tell you where we're at, but you'll know." And she just like kind of gets this intuition, and she's like, "All right, I'm going north or whatever." And she starts talking about stuff, and she's like, "Oh, I know about 82376 and whatnot." And he's like, "You shouldn't know about that, but come find us." And she ends up just kind of like has this gut feeling, knows where to go, and she kind of has this really funny moment where she just destroys her phone. Then we cut to Noah's agency, and we can learn we see the slot with the wands, right? We were talking about the wands earlier. Kellner had one at the beginning of the film, used it as his leverage to escape. But Noah's agency is using the wands to dive into people's minds, which is pretty much taken over them. We were talking about that with Jane during the chase scene and whatnot, and he's got one of them. But yeah, they dive into Jane's mind, they find Kellner, and they do that chase through the farmhouse, which had amazing visuals. So, just catching up, they escape by throwing the rock in the quarry. They have all the data and everything, and Jane was able to break away from Noah's connection for now. So they end up hiding in this hotel where Noah dives into Jane's brain again, and he's able to find them from a piece of paper that had the hotel's address on it that Kellner was holding in his sleep. But here we learn that Kellner doesn't have. Well, we don't learn that yet. Never mind. At the farm, another mention, we talked about the cardinal coming and talking to Margaret. At the farm, they had these deers that came straight up to the window. And we see these guys all over the trailer. Like, we see them here at the end. I can pull them up real quick. Where's the house at? Yep, so here's the deer. And we see the fox and the cardinal in this trailer as well. But I'm not too crazy pressed about it. Yep, so throughout the night, Kellner actually tied up, or by the request of Jane, tied her up just because, they couldn't trust her anymore. Noah diving into her mind. When she was asleep, Noah dived into the mine, and they're both awakened by the police breaking down the doors. Kellner makes the decision to get away, and there's no way both of them can escape. So he ends up getting Jane out the bathroom window and gives him the wand and says, "Run, hide, run. Don't let them get this." But he stays behind with the backpack and is actually arrested. There's actually a scene, pretty long take, where they're not really beating him, but they're definitely detaining him. And he kind of throws this cop, and it's like, come on, like. But it's this really cool moment. So Kellner is arrested with all of with the backpack and all the evidence. The only thing that is gone is Jane, and she escaped with the wand. So we actually catch back up with Margaret and Jackson as they're at a gas station. And the gas station, I don't know what they're talking about, but a lot of the news is talking about World War III and the North Koreans and doing something crazy. But people are like, they're not looting, but they're panicking and getting as many supplies as possible and whatnot. These two characters have a very realistic argument, which I really like. And Jackson is just like, he's such a realistic character and relatable character here because, like, Margaret is acting nuts. She's acting insane, but he's just expected to go along with it. And he's kind of having this freak out, but he's trying to keep it together and keep them calm and keep them, headed straight. And she's basically saying, "Oh, I need to find Kellner. He's actually east, but we're going to go north because he's not there yet, but he's going to be there, and we're going to find him." And it's kind of this like crazy sense. If you heard someone saying it, you're like, all right, you're on drugs. So he actually goes inside the gas station and calls the doctor. And he says, "Look, like crazy stuff's going on with her. I need you. I need someone to come find us. Here we are," and tells him the address of the gas station, who he finds from a clerk he didn't just know, which I really liked. But he's like, "Look, something's wrong with her. I need help. I know the MRI looked good, but I'm scared something's going on," and it makes him such a good background character. But he comes back out to her to see she took the car and left without him. And she actually told this little kid, she told the kid to tell him that she loves you, but she just had to go. But she loves you and she's sorry, but she had to go, which was kind of funny. But during their argument, she looked into her boyfriend Jackson and basically says, "I know what's been going on." And they were talking about the film. She wanted to move earlier, and she said, "I know that you want me to move, and you will stay when I move. That's what you want." So basically, kind of alluding that he's been having a lot of issues, and like we were talking about earlier, he was ignoring the relationship. But he was having a lot of his issues, and those were kind of building up, and internally, he was already kind of thinking about ending things and whatnot. But so, okay. Margaret actually ends up driving to where Kellner is held. And we actually see him. They're trying to dive into his mind and interrogate him there in person and trying to get all the information out of him they can. But Margaret just knows where he's at through the gut field and goes straight to this military base. And she like speeds up the door, and the guardsman comes out and is like, "What the hell are you doing? What the hell do you think you're doing driving like that?" She's like, "Here's your name. Um, here's your your ID number, and here's your daily chain code." He's like, "Yes, ma'am." Lets her through the door. She does the same thing with the gate. She's like, "Take me here," and he's like, "Yes." They take her straight to Keltner, and there's like hundreds of agents, and they're all staring at her. And she walks straight in the trailer where Kellner is being interrogated, and Noah's in there as well, some other scientists, and his head lieutenant. And she goes straight in there to get Hugo. Noah stops her, and she's like, "No, no, no! What are you doing? I don't know who you are." I mean, he knows who she is because he saw the freak out, but basically stops her and everything. But she actually looks into Noah's mind, and she doesn't convince him. But you see the camera, and a very amazing camera work here. But the camera goes behind his head, and we see Emily Blunt, and then on the other side of his head, we see this older lady who actually ends up being his wife. And so he just kind of stands down and lets them go. And she gets Kellner in the backpack, and they leave. And as they're on their way out, dozens of more people are trying to stop them, and she keeps grabbing them, and she's like, "I'm your daughter. I love you, and I can't wait for us to go camping with Grandma and Grandpa, even if I can't stay." And then this man tries to stop them, and she looks into him and becomes an elderly man. She's like, "I love you." He's like, "I love you, and I want you to be there," and all this. And this other guy, he's like looking at like his teenage son. He's like, "I want you to be there, even though I can't say it." Right, and it just connects with these people on a super deep level, and every single one of them is that way. And like my father being a much older figure, like I really connected with that one because it's it's hard to connect with someone that much older than you, especially two men in the Midwest. Like it's hard to share emotion. So when the scene comes out, and he's like, "I loved you. I just couldn't ever say it." That was hard to see. And a daughter talking to her mother, who you just have to assume there's a lot of teenage angst going on there that is like in between their relationship. And this man, talking to no one, talking to his dead wife and just saying, "Hey, it's okay. We're, our intentions are good." But they end up escaping out, and everyone just like stood down. They're freaked out, except for Noah's number one, who I believe his name was Diaz. But he goes after them with a car, and it bugged me. But he like grabbed a pistol and ammo out of this thing, and he grabbed the right side pistol, the right side magazine, but he grabbed the left side car keys, which bugged the hell out of me. I don't know why the hell we had to do it that way, but whatever. Not a big deal. But he ends up catching up to them, and Kellner and Margaret are talking because it's the first time they've actually met with each other. He's seen a video of her, but she's kind of been hunting him without knowing who he was. But they both, since they know each other, they don't know how though. That's Jane right there. So, and here's Hugo. But basically, we break in. We catch up to them. They're having this conversation, and it's kind of Margaret going through it, and she's almost stepping into this breakdown. She's like, "I don't know how I'm doing this, and all this is going on, rah rah rah." And I can't look into your mind though, like I can most people. And they're going, and they end up getting railroaded, stopping. But Agent Diaz comes up behind them, rams their car in the train. They're trying to fight it, but they can't do it, and they end up getting knocked in the train. The train starts dragging their car. They end up hopping up on the rail. He chases after them, shooting after them, but they end up getting away, as you do, because our characters have to continue. And they get inside the train car, and they've fully escaped Agent Diaz. And Margaret has this panic attack, and it's so real. And she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to go back to my life. And it's like she's having this panic attack, and it's like scary to watch because it's so real. And anyone that's ever had one, like you'll know exactly what it is. And it's not that you can't breathe. It's like you forget, like how to. And Emily Blunt does that so phenomenally well. She does it really well, plays it super well, and the only thing that can calm her down is Hugo. He's trying to calm her down, failing, but he ends up taking her hands and running over the strings of a piano. She's like, just feel this, feel the vibration. And because there just happened to be a piano in the car they fell in. But they end up escaping and walking through kind of the countryside after a while, and they see this fox, which is actually the third animal we see. So we see the stag, we see the cardinal, then we see the stag, and then we see the fox. And the CGI could definitely do a little work, but I also don't think these are supposed to be super realistic. And we're seeing these three for a reason at very specific points. But they end up going, and these two fire trucks pull up on them, and they like grab them and start pulling them away. And obviously, he thinks the agency. Nope, it's Hugo's people, and he's like, "All right, we're just checking you out." They do the scanner up their eyes, make sure no one's dived inside of them, and they're safe to come and whatnot. But in this meantime, so Hugo and Noah are actually. This is the hotel room when the agents broke in the door. But this scene right here, this is Diaz right here. I'm talking about, and here's Noah. But this scene right here is happening as they're kind of coming to Hugo's compound. And I think this was probably the second best moment of the film. But Hugo just has the speed, so Noah dives into Hugo's mind, but he can't pull any information because Hugo kind of knows how it goes. I guess it's the fortified mind kind of concept. But Hugo just has this speech. Oh, and sorry, when they were seeing the fox, we discovered that Kellner doesn't remember anything before he was 10 years old. Which coincidentally, when Jackson and Margaret were in the hospital and they were talking, he brought up the story, and she had this traumatic incident when she was 10 years old, and she says she doesn't remember it, and she can't confront it. So it connects those two characters at 10 years old. We also see Jane. She calls from she calls from a diner and actually talks to the nun that housed them earlier, and she was like, "So how would you react if you learned that there were extraterrestrials in the world?" And she's like, "How would you deal with your faith and whatnot?" And the nun has one of the best lines I've ever heard in the argument of extraterrestrial life, and she basically says, right. And they were talking. Jane says this quote from Genesis, and she says it wrong, and I don't remember the exact quote, and I didn't look at it, even though my Bible's right next to me. I definitely need to read that more. But she she says this quote from Genesis wrong, and what the nun actually says is correction. So Jane says the line, and it goes something along, humanity was God's creation of supreme beings. And the nun correction, she's like, no, supreme beings on earth. The Bible very specifically mentions on earth in that phrase, kind of hinting that God had more life in the universe that he made. And she also kind of says this line, and I thought that was super beautiful right there. And she basically tells Jane that because Jane went through this, was talking earlier, and she's like, yeah, I used to live with these nuns and whatnot. I used to be one, then I lost my faith. And the nun was like, telling Jane, I don't think you ever lost your faith in God. I think you lost your faith in people, which is such a real thing for anyone struggling with religion, myself included. Like, that's where I go. Every time I have an argument with religion, it comes up to one of two factors, one of them being science and one of them being people. And that's my personal struggle with it. And I'm so happy that was in the film, and I just can immediately relate to this character. But we kind of catch up to the scene between Hugo, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And Hugo tells all the people around him to hide, and they're in this this house set you can kind of see here, and they're in this warehouse. But he hides all the people, so when Noah gets there, it's just him. So Noah can't see anyone or anything; just knows they're in a house somewhere. And Hugo goes into this thing about how it's just this absolutely amazing speech, and it's hard to like pull the dialogue from it. But I remember sitting there and like, that speech makes me want to be a better man. It's like Superman's speech in Superman 2025 by James Gunn. And it's just this speech that makes you want to be a better person. And it's talking about being a believer and loving the world and believing that there's more out there and wanting to have faith that what's out there, if we like reveal the the identity of these aliens and whatnot, that we're not going to be into chaos. We're going to be into love and faith, and or we're going to grow as civilization. It's not all going to go crumbling down in our fear. And he also mentions one of the aliens, which I think is A2673, which Margaret referenced earlier. They've referenced this alien 2 or 3 times throughout this film. But he starts talking about empathy. Right, these aliens are the next step of evolution because they've evolved past us already and whatnot. He's basically saying the next step of evolution isn't something that Noah will understand, but it's about empathy. Empathy is the next step of just because we look at something and we're not empathetic, that's what's holding us back. So like, I think it goes a lot to the world, like a lot about our wars and our climate. A lot of it happens because we lack empathy, right? Because we put our wants and our wants before our empathy, and that causes more problems. And it's just kind of the sentiment that the world can share, the world can be okay, and it's just this amazing speech. I love it. But Hugo's people find them after they see the fox, and they actually take him to their warehouse. And, sorry. But they take them to their warehouse, and they actually see that they rebuilt Margaret's childhood home. And Margaret kind of goes around to everyone and sees them and says, I know all these people. And she has another panic attack because all these people are around her, and basically she just says, no, I don't want to be your religion. That's not who I am. That's not what I am. Don't ask me to be that. And it's this very beautiful moment. Very, very beautiful sentiment. But she ends up getting calmed down, and Kellner talks her into doing their experiment. So what Hugo's goal is to do is make her and Kellner dive into what happened to her when she was 10 years old. Because they believe she has the power of something. So Noah, we kind of find out, is a translator. And when she's doing her news report and is speaking the alien language, he's the only person on the world that can hear it. And basically what they're saying is, don't be afraid, let the truth out, is I think what the line was. But Kellner is the only person that can hear it. Because he was also gifted, but they're trying to activate like Margaret's ability to communicate with the aliens in the world and do all this and kind of see things for how they are and see through people and however it goes. I think it's like that plot was like the one of two things I saw that was like really like it doesn't make sense that they would have to do this. They're only doing this as the purpose to set up a flashback. But basically, Margaret and Kellner end up going together and diving together, holding the Hugo's wand, actually. And we see this scene right here. And we flash back to the moment when she was a child, and this is the story that happened when she was 10 years old. Here's the stag, here's the canary, and the fox is also here in her bedroom. There was also a raccoon. But they actually take her to this Hansel and Gretel house she was talking about. But so they're saying all these animals, and you can see all four of them right here. They are not animals. They are the aliens, but they wanted to calm us down, so they appeared to us as aliens first. But she makes a comment of she remembers walking straight through the wall, and it felt like warm water was running over. And she's walking barefoot as a child through the snow, and it doesn't. Her feet aren't cold. The snow is super warm, so it's kind of she's going through this transportation into the Hansel and Gretel house, which is actually their ship. So we can see this play out a little bit. It's a very beautiful scene. All right, here's her in her bedroom. And there's her breakdown. There's her rescuing Kellner. But basically, both kids go into the spaceship. And we see that Kellner is also in there, which is kind of like a revelation. But you see the aliens here. And at the end of the trailer, you can see it a little better. But right here, they kind of like pull their face back. And they're both terrified, and they both hold hands. Which is kind of where their connection comes from. And they're given this imprint, this gift from the alien. And I don't like this trailer because it shows too much. This is the final trailer. I thought the initial trailers were really good because they didn't show anything. But here's Noah diving. But here's some spaceship footage we see. Here's them. They're holding the wand. And I was hoping we could see it. But I don't think it's here. But I'm going to go back to this wand real quick. Right here. But they go through and they have this amazing shot where they come in and she's like laying on her bed, which actually turns out to be like the aliens' experimentation table. They're trying to like trick their minds to keep them that calm and whatnot. And they find out they were given the gift, and she kind of unlocks it here. And this is after they go after. But Kellner was having this extreme breakdown because he was super terrified of the aliens and freaking out. Even though he was on their side, like they were scaring him with what they were doing, and they were taking this 10-year-old kid, and he didn't want to see it, and he was freaking out. But Margaret ends up calming them down, and they both continue. Let's see, where are we at my script? Oh, they also make this joke when they're talking with the Fox about Kellner talking, and he was like, when he first recognized his gifts and when he realized he was chosen was in college, and he was brilliant, but he was a terrible student because he was on ketamine and partying the whole time. It's what Margaret's looking into his eyes and saying. But he ends up being able to translate language, and what she is speaking, the alien like clicking sounds, he can read it as math and understand what they're saying. And it's just this prodigy like thing he was given by the aliens. But yeah, so they were inspected by the aliens. Marge unlocks her ability. The agency actually finds them. They find them by being in a dead industrial zone. And so they come surround this building. They can see all these heat signatures, and they break down the building. But they don't see anything in the building except this glowing light, which actually ends up being this wand. So what Margaret is doing here is making everyone invisible. Everyone is completely invisible. No one can be seen, but they can hear them. So they're walking around. They're getting inside these fire trucks, slamming doors. And there's this point where all these agents are running, and they run into the house, and they break through the window, and they run in the fire truck. It's kind of this goofy, lighthearted moment, but it calms it down a little bit more. And you see their bodies start floating because it's the people carrying them out of the way because they all hurt themselves running straight into a steel fire truck, But they end up escaping through the fire trucks, and you see them driving through the water as they're invisible. And it's actually this really kind of cool VFX shot. Because you can see the water rotating around the wheels, and you see it covering the bottom bases of the fire trucks, but you can't see the fire trucks. They're completely invisible. But they escape. Noah and Agent Diaz are really pissed off, as you can tell. But so the main crew goes to the news station, actually, where Margaret here is working. And the secondary crew goes to a different location. So basically, they go in the news station, and here's this actually amazing shot when they're getting interrogated. But this deer, turns in, and you can see the gray alien here. This is the first visual of it, and it's this really cool, terrifying kind of thing. But so we get to the news station. This is where this clip or this shot right here actually comes from. But they go up and they're going through and talking. She's talking to her old boss who was mad at her, but he's like, "Look." He looks through her eyes and tells him something super personal about himself. He's like, "I need this." And so basically, they take Hugo to the loading bay, and a truck pulls in with something. We see him look at it, smile, and there's red light shining on him. We don't know what it is. They take Kellner to the broadcast area, the broadcast room, and he starts uploading all the data in his backpack and all the files to their station. And they start reaching out to other news networks saying, "Hey, you need to stream our breaking news right now." And so every news station is watching the broadcast, and Margaret gets up and she's going to present this. And actually, the lady she talked to earlier comes up to her and she says, "Thank you. I called the cops. I'm living with my sister. My daughter and I are safe. My boyfriend is out of the picture. We are safe now." And it's a pretty beautiful moment. But as Margaret prepares to make the address, Kellner is uploading all the data. Hugo's at the truck bay with his thing that got unloaded. But the agent, she shows up to the station. They go and blow up the city power, and they turn off the backup generators right as they're about to broadcast. So they come in, and they're getting ready to arrest everyone, and they're all yelling at each other. And Jane Ashley, like, it's also kind of like a dumb plot moment, but whatever. She ends up walking straight through this police blockade and everything, and comes up. Oh, and before they escaped, so when they escaped on the fire truck, after making everyone invisible, the wand that Hugo had was destroyed. It was disintegrated in Margaret's hand from using it for so much. But she gives Kellner's wand, the wand she ran away with, to Margaret when the power's down, and it's basically our all hope is lost moment. But she gives the third wand to Margaret, and she's basically able, with her newfound ability, to use it, and she knows how to use it. Noah was talking about it earlier in the film. He tried to use it and almost died doing it. Kellner didn't know how to use it in the opening scene of the film, but she now knows how to use it and was able to turn back all the power on the news station in this beautiful moment. So she does this address, and she's basically saying, "Welcome, this is Disclosure Day." And she... Sorry, hold on. That's in my throat. But she goes into this live address that aliens are real and starts showing decades of footage. And this is my favorite scene of the film. And there's about a 20-minute scene, I think, where the only audio is actually a different broadcaster trying to speak, and she's stuttering and she's scared. And when we start seeing all these early on clips, I'm trying to find it, but they show like Roswell. Let's see, is it right at the beginning? But they show Roswell, New Mexico, and all these other alien sites, and they show the footage of Richard Nixon again, and they show the footage of interrogating these aliens to the entire world. And it's going through and showing all this footage of no one's freaking out or panicking. Everyone's just shut down. You see, like, it starts going through this clip. Here's all these aliens and these UFOs flying around the place and whatnot. And you see this footage as well here. And it's super beautiful. Super beautiful moment. But there's the data that Kellner had. But it's about 20 minutes long and no one's talking. It's just one girl stuttering. She's trying to talk and she's stammering and she's scared. She's freaked out. And it's just this beautiful moment. And it's like, you're sitting there and I was like terrified, but you're also like bawling your eyes out because you're like, how did this happen? What's going on? And there's just so much going on. And it's just like I said, terrible, beautiful. And there's so many emotions. Like I was sitting there, I was like scared, but I was almost crying as well. And there's so much rolling over. But they end up going and they're showing all this footage, right? And you see more of it coming up here as well. But they show all this footage of these aliens and their spacecrafts and stuff. Here's them turning off all the power. Here's this lady talking about the news report. And you see all this footage and all the alien bodies. And you see the sister, this image of the nuns too. This is that scene I was talking about where she's like rolling over into his wife. But It's just this jaw-dropping scene, and I can't praise it enough, and I want to watch this film again just to see that scene again. But she shows multiple famous. There's actually Keller right there, and they're on the beds holding hands together as they're interrogated. They're terrified, and they both kind of get this. I guess you can call it probe, but they were given these abilities. And it's just this amazingness. But yeah, here's another scene. You see this UFO. There's them gearing up to go inside. There's this UFO, which I thought was really cool. It actually looked like one of the pyramid ships from Destiny for a moment. And it's got a lot more scenes like that. But it's beautiful. It's terrifying. You see like 70 plus years of these experiments that were completely hidden. And it's beautiful. And you have all the broadcasts going like, oh, we're checking this and the ground pixels are real. This is not AI. This is not AI. This is real footage. And it's just this beautiful moment. It's like terrifying. But yeah, Margaret announces that this is Disclosure Day. Obviously dropped the title of the film. And everyone in the world's watching in silence and watching in fear. And it's broadcasted by every news network in the world. We see like Indian, Asian, European broadcast all going off at the same time. Seeing it. And it's just this fearful, hopeful moment. The nuns were watching, which was a very powerful statement. And it was something I really appreciated, that they let this film be both science fiction and religious at the same time. They said there was room for both. I remember when I was in 8th grade, or 6th grade, different schools, sorry. My science teacher told me when someone in the class asked a question that there is room for both religion and science in the world. We need to be okay with that and allow that. And that's what this film does. I'm super happy about it. But then we actually see Hugo comes in and he brings this alien who's in his wheelchair and he's contaminated. And so they take off its like shield, take it out, and then they take off this plastic cage around it. And it's this much older alien, the one that Hugo was talking about, the one Noah was talking about, the one that Kellner and Margaret were both talking about. And I'm guessing this, they don't ever make it clear, but I think this was the alien that was tortured. Ever make it clear, but I think that's what was going on. The alien stands up and it's about 8 feet tall. It's this massive thing, and it super old, super frail, skinny, but looked really cool. And they're filming it and showing it to the world. And they basically have it speaks to Margaret or speaks to Kellner, and Kellner translates to Margaret, whispers it in her ear, and we don't hear what he says. But Margaret then goes to the camera and says, "Listen," the word "listen," and the film ends right there. And I'm telling you, this was one of the best films I've seen in the last several years. Maybe I just might be high off the first visual and kind of seeing what's going on, but I think Steven Spielberg knocked it out of the park. This is one of those magical movies that were there, and this is a film that I believe like children need to see to challenge their belief in the world and allow themselves to be this greatness and just see what's out there. And it basically just says believe, trust, and be truthful. And like I said, the tagline for this film is, if you found out we weren't alone, if someone showed you and proved it to you, would that frighten you? And they absolutely challenge that. Like that 20-minute scene I was talking about, it's challenging. And like when they watch you, that you are scared, but you're also like this amazing hope that you see. And all of the VFX is absolutely phenomenal that you see. And it's terrifying. You see like alien bodies being taken out of spacecrafts and stuff that had crash landed or either gotten shot down, and all these amazing things. But this film is absolutely phenomenal. This is the longest script I've ever made at 6 pages. This video is currently 55 minutes long. That is just amazing to me. I'm still new to this, still working on my script processing and trying to learn and develop this to make the highest quality content for you guys. But I cannot tell you how impressed I am. I'm giving this film a 9 out of 10. Easy. Like, there's only a few small plot points. Oh, I talked about the one earlier about kind of the whole thing of them going to her house and stuff, about the trauma when they were kids, and it was like the whole plot point of it was kind of like pointless and didn't really need to do anything. but it just served as a moment to do a flashback, and I think it worked well. And the other one was at the news station when Margaret is handed the third wand and turns on all the power again. Noah's character just sits down in a chair and gives up. And Diaz is angry at him. He's like, "You're not going to stop this. You're not going to do anything." And there's like 30 agents with guns pointed at them. Anyone could have shot someone, and just this would have been over and whatnot. Would have been over. Would have been dealt with. Would have been done. But Diaz just walks away, and Noah just sat down and gave up. Which I understand they were terrified of that wand, and whatever it could have done, killed them, hurt them, whatever. But those were only the two small moments I had. But this film is amazing. You need to watch this film. This film is amazing. I can't preach it enough. It has so much emotion, such this amazing pace. It's 2.5 hours long. It does not feel that way though. It's amazing. But so that's pretty much all I have. Like I said, I'm giving this movie a 9 out of 10, which is the highest film I've rated so far. I think the highest before this was 8, but I'm giving this a whole point ahead. I said, if it weren't for those two small like plot point issues, this film would be a 9.5. And like I'm saying, this film, in my eyes, is one of the greatest films ever made. As of right now, and maybe rewatching that, and maybe like my early contradictions and seeing it, I feel a little different. But the way I look at this film right now is this film, to me, is number 2 only to Interstellar. So, but that's all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. So if you want to see this content more, please subscribe to support. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think and what you guys want to see next, and any tips or recommendations you have of improvement. I really need those. I really like them. But thank you guys for watching. I'm Above, and I will see you guys next time. Bye for now.